Chapter 2. I've arranged for you to travel to Deepwood Motte, Lord Stark said, his words echoing through the room like a solemn vow. There, you will take up the mantle of lordship and carry on the legacy of House Stark in a distant land. The unexpected announcement. Jon's heart sank as the reality of his father's decision settled over him like a heavy cloak. He had always known that his status as a bastard son of House Stark would inevitably lead him down a different path from his legitimate siblings, but he had never imagined that path would take him so far from home. Are you sending me away? Jon's voice wavered slightly, betraying the mix of emotions swirling within him. He felt a pang of hurt and confusion, wondering why his father had chosen this moment to separate him from the only family he had ever known. Lord Stark regarded Jon with a solemn expression, his gaze filled with a mixture of empathy and resolve. Yes, Jon, he replied, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. But it's not to cast you aside. Rather, it's an opportunity for you to learn and grow, to embrace your heritage and fulfill your potential as a Stark. Jon struggled to comprehend his father's words, his mind racing with questions and uncertainties. Deepwood Motte seemed like a distant and foreign place, its customs and traditions worlds apart from the familiar comforts of Winterfell. And yet, beneath his apprehension, there was a flicker of curiosity, a spark of excitement at the prospect of embarking on a new adventure. Sensing Jon's inner turmoil, Lord Stark placed a comforting hand on his son's shoulder. You won't be alone, he reassured him, his voice tinged with warmth. I have chosen a trusted man to accompany you, to provide guidance and support during your time at Deepwood Motte. Jon's eyes widened in surprise at his father's unexpected revelation. He had not anticipated having a companion on this journey, let alone someone chosen specifically by Lord Stark himself. Despite his lingering doubts, he felt a glimmer of gratitude and relief at the thought of having a trusted ally by his side. And what of Robb and the others? Jon asked, his voice tinged with concern for his younger siblings. He knew that his departure would undoubtedly have an impact on them, and he couldn't help but worry about how they would react to the news. Lord Stark's expression softened with understanding as he considered Jon's question. I will speak to your siblings and explain the situation to them, he replied, his tone reassuring. They need to understand that this is not a punishment, but rather a necessary step for the future of our house. And I will ensure that they have the support they need during your absence. With a heavy heart, Jon nodded, his mind buzzing with a whirlwind of emotions. He knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges and uncertainties, but he also knew that he could not turn his back on his duty to House Stark. As he braced himself for the journey to Deepwood Motte, Jon took solace in the knowledge that he would not be facing it alone. With the guidance of his trusted companion and the support of his family, he would find the strength to embrace his destiny and honor the legacy of his noble bloodline. The legacy of Greystoke. Jon's brow furrowed in confusion as his father revealed another layer to his plan. The notion of taking on a new name and resurrecting a long-forgotten branch of House Stark was both intriguing and daunting. He listened intently as Lord Stark explained the history of the Greystokes, a distant cousin branch of their noble house. The Greystokes were once a proud and noble branch of House Stark, Lord Stark began, his voice carrying a weight of solemnity. They ruled over the lands of Dragonseer Point, loyal vassals to Winterfell for centuries. But their allegiance wavered, and they conspired with the treacherous Boltons in a bid for power. Jon's eyes widened in shock at the revelation. He had heard tales of the Boltons' betrayal and their bloody rebellion against House Stark, but he had never imagined that his own family had been entangled in such dark history. The uprising led to the downfall of the Greystocks. Lord Stark continued, his voice tinged with regret. They were wiped out, their name erased from memory, their lands reclaimed by House Stark. But now, with you, Jon, we have the opportunity to breathe new life into the legacy of Greystock. Jon's mind reeled with the weight of his father's words. The idea of carrying on the name of a fallen house, of reviving their memory from the ashes of history, filled him with a sense of purpose and responsibility unlike anything he had ever known. You will take on the name Greystock as your lordly name, Lord Stark declared, his voice firm but compassionate. Jon Greystock I, a symbol of our house's resilience and determination to honor the past while forging a new future. Jon nodded slowly, his mind racing with conflicting emotions. The burden of this new identity weighed heavily on him, but he also felt a surge of pride and determination to uphold the honor and dignity of the Greystocks. And Dragonseer Point? Jon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He knew that the lands once ruled by the Greystocks were now desolate and unclaimed, a barren reminder of the sins of the past. Lord Stark's gaze softened as he met Jon's eyes. Dragonseer Point remains untouched and untamed, he replied. But with your leadership, Jon, we can reclaim it as a symbol of our house's strength and unity. As Jon contemplated the magnitude of his father's vision, he felt a newfound sense of purpose coursing through his veins. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges and uncertainties, but he knew that he was ready to embrace his destiny as Jon Greystock, the first of his name, and to write a new chapter in the storied history of House Stark. The fall of House Greystock. As Lord Stark delved into the history of House Greystock, Jon listened intently, captivated by the tale of their rise and eventual downfall. The story of how they once ruled over Sea Dragon Point and commanded a significant portion of the Northern Fleet filled Jon with a sense of wonder and curiosity. But it was the tragic events that led to their demise that truly gripped his heart. House Greystock was once a formidable power in the North. Lord Stark began, his voice tinged with sorrow as he recounted the tale of their ancestors. For generations, they ruled over Sea Dragon Point with strength and cunning, their influence stretching far and wide across the land. But their fortunes took a dark turn when Alucard the Red ascended to power. Lord Stark continued, his tone growing somber. Alucard was a ruthless and ambitious ruler, driven by a desire for power and glory. And when my ancestor, Lord Cregan Stark, was lost at sea under mysterious circumstances, Alucard saw an opportunity to seize control. Jon listened in silent horror as his father spoke of Alucard the Red's treachery, how he allied himself with the Boltons and betrayed House Stark in a bid to expand his own power. The betrayal of House Greystock, once loyal bannerman to the Starks, sent shockwaves throughout the north, plunging the region into chaos and bloodshed. In the end, House Greystock paid the ultimate price for their betrayal, Lord Stark said, his voice heavy with regret. They were extinguished, their lands seized by House Stark as punishment for their crimes. Jon felt a pang of sadness at the tragic fate of House Greystock, their once proud legacy tarnished by greed and betrayal. But as he looked upon his father, he saw a glimmer of determination in his eyes, a silent vow to uphold the honor and integrity of House Stark for generations to come. And so, Jon, Lord Stark said, his voice filled with quiet resolve, it falls to us to ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. We must remain vigilant against the dangers that lurk within our own ranks and stand united in the face of adversity. For the honor of House Stark and the legacy of our ancestors, we must never forget the lessons of history. Jon nodded solemnly, his heart heavy with the weight of his family's legacy. But as he looked out upon the lands of Winterfell, he knew that he would carry on the traditions of House Stark with pride and honor, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. For he was Jon Snow, the son of Eddard Stark, and the blood of the North flowed through his veins. The Lost Fleet. As Jon listened to the tale of House Grey Stark's downfall and the tragic fate of the Northern Fleet, a spark of curiosity ignited within him. He couldn't shake off the thought of the once mighty ships that had sailed under the banner of House Stark, lost to the flames of Bran the Burner's betrayal. Father Jon began, his voice tinged with a mix of wonder and concern, why does the North not have a fleet anymore? What happened to the ships that once sailed under our banner? Lord Stark's expression softened as he regarded his son, sensing the inquisitiveness that burned within him. It is a dark chapter in our history, Jon, he replied, his voice heavy with sorrow. After the Skagga War, when your grandfather was lost at sea, Bran the Burner ordered the burning of the Northern Fleet in grief and rage. Jon's eyes widened in shock at the revelation, the weight of his family's history pressing down on him like a heavy cloak. He had heard tales of the Skagga War, of the fierce battles fought against the savage warriors of Skagos, but he had never realized the extent of the tragedy that had befallen House Stark in its aftermath. The loss of the Northern Fleet was a devastating blow to our people, Lord Stark continued, his voice filled with sadness. Without ships to patrol our coasts and protect our shores, the North became vulnerable to attack from all sides. And in the years that followed, we struggled to rebuild what was lost. Jon felt a surge of determination well up within him as he listened to his father's words. He knew that the North could not afford to remain defenseless, not with threats looming on the horizon. If House Stark was to reclaim its former glory and protect its people from harm, then they would need to rebuild the Northern Fleet and reclaim their rightful place on the seas. I understand, Father Jon said, his voice firm with resolve. I swear that I will do everything in my power to ensure that House Stark rises once again and that our people are kept safe from harm. Lord Stark smiled proudly at his son, his heart swelling with pride at the sight of the young man standing before him. He knew that Jon possessed the courage and determination to fulfill his oath, to honor the legacy of House Stark and lead his people to a brighter future. Thank you, Jon, Lord Stark said, his voice filled with warmth and affection. I have no doubt that you will make us all proud. And as Jon stood in the presence of his father, the weight of his family's history heavy upon his shoulders, he felt a newfound sense of purpose stir within him. For he was Jon Snow, the son of Eddard Stark, and the blood of the North flowed through his veins. And with every step he took, he would honor the legacy of his ancestors and ensure that House Stark endured for generations to come. Reflections and aspirations. With the weight of their conversation still hanging in the air, Lord Stark watched as Jon absorbed the tales of their family's past, his mind swirling with newfound knowledge and responsibilities. Sensing that his son needed time to reflect, Lord Stark gently dismissed Jon to his chambers, where he could contemplate the future of House Greystoke. Go, Jon, Lord Stark said, his voice soft but firm. Take the time you need to think about what it means to carry on the legacy of House Greystoke. Choose your words and design your banner wisely, for they will represent not only our family's past but also our hopes for the future. Jon nodded solemnly, his thoughts already turning to the task at hand. As he made his way to his chambers, he felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation coursing through him. The opportunity to create something new, something that would stand the test of time and honor the memory of his ancestors, filled him with a sense of purpose unlike anything he had ever known. Entering his chambers, Jon sank into a chair by the window, gazing out at the sprawling grounds of Winterfell as he pondered the words and symbols that would come to define House Greystoke. He thought back to the tales his father had told him, of the strength and courage of their ancestors, and he knew that their spirit would guide him in this endeavor. For hours, John lost himself in thought, scribbling down ideas and sketches until his mind was awash with possibilities. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, he finally settled on a banner and words that spoke to the heart of House Greystoke. With a sense of satisfaction, John set to work, carefully crafting the banner and refining the words until they resonated with the strength and resilience of their lineage. And as he laid down his quill and surveyed his handiwork, he knew that he had done justice to the legacy of House Greystoke. With a sense of purpose renewed, John retired to his bed, his heart filled with anticipation for the future that awaited him. For he was Jon Snow, the heir to House Greystoke, and his journey was only just beginning. Under the guidance of Maester Lewin and his father, John embarked on a journey of learning and growth unlike any he had experienced before. From dawn till dusk, he immersed himself in the intricacies of governance, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. In the halls of Winterfell, John could often be found at Maester Lewin's side, poring over ancient tomes and scrolls, learning the histories of the North and the ways of diplomacy. The Maester patiently imparted his wisdom, teaching John the art of negotiation and the importance of maintaining alliances in times of peace and war. But it was not only within the walls of Winterfell that John honed his skills. Alongside his father, he ventured out into the vast expanse of their lands, visiting villages and holdfasts, listening to the concerns of his people and striving to understand the challenges they faced. Under Lord Stark's tutelage, John learned the intricacies of strategy and warfare, studying the movements of armies and the art of tactics. He observed as his father negotiated trade agreements and settled disputes, gaining insight into the complexities of ruling a domain. And as the seasons turned and years passed, John grew into his role as the future Lord of House Greystoke, his confidence and knowledge expanding with each passing day. He was no longer the hesitant boy who had first inherited his father's mantle, but a man forged by experience and guided by a deep sense of duty. Through it all, John remained ever mindful of the legacy he carried, of the weight of his family's name resting upon his shoulders. But he also embraced the future with optimism and determination, knowing that with each lesson learned and each challenge overcome, he was one step closer to fulfilling his destiny. And so, as the sun set on another day in Winterfell, John retired to his chambers, his mind alive with possibilities. For he was Jon Snow, heir to House Greystoke, and the future held endless promise for one who was willing to seize it. Despite his growing responsibilities, John cherished the moments of respite he spent with his younger siblings, Arya and Bran. Their laughter echoed through the halls of Winterfell as they chased each other through the courtyard or played games beneath the ancient heart tree in the Godswood. Arya, with her wild spirit and fierce determination, was always eager to join John in his adventures. She would race him through the forests surrounding Winterfell, her laughter like music in the crisp northern air. And though Bran's legs were too small to keep up, he would watch with wide-eyed wonder, his imagination taking flight as he listened to Jon's tales of far-off lands and heroic deeds. But despite the joy they shared, there was a shadow that hung over their playtime, a reminder of the duty that awaited Jon beyond the walls of Winterfell. As the eldest son, it fell to him to someday leave their home and journey to Deepwood Motte, where he would oversee their family's ancestral seat. The thought weighed heavily on Jon's heart, casting a pall over their games and filling him with a sense of sadness that he couldn't quite shake. He knew that his departure was inevitable, that the time would come when he would have to say goodbye to the only home he had ever known. And yet, in the midst of their play, Jon found solace in the laughter of his siblings, in the simple joy of being together as a family. For no matter what the future held, he knew that the bond they shared would endure, a beacon of light to guide him through the darkness that lay ahead. So, as the days passed and their time together grew shorter, Jon savored every precious moment with Arya and Bran, treasuring the memories they created together. For even as he prepared to leave Winterfell behind, he knew that their love would always remain, a constant reminder of the home he carried in his heart. Farewell and tension. As Robb Stark's health improved, he received the news of Jon's departure with a mixture of sadness and understanding. Though he would miss his half-brother dearly, he knew that Jon's journey was necessary for the future of House Greystoke. With a heavy heart, Robb bid Jon farewell, promising to keep Winterfell strong in his absence. "I'll miss you, Jon," Robb said, his voice tinged with melancholy as they stood in the courtyard of Winterfell. "But I know that you're meant for greater things. Make us proud, brother." Jon clasped Robb's forearm in a solemn gesture of farewell, his eyes reflecting the depth of their bond. "Thank you, Robb," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll carry the Stark name with honor, wherever I go." As Jon prepared to depart, however, there was one member of the household who seemed less than sorrowful about his leaving. Theon Greyjoy, ward of House Stark, greeted the news with thinly veiled satisfaction, his disdain for Jon evident in every word and gesture. "You'll be gone soon enough, Snow," Theon taunted, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "Off to play lordling in the south, while the rest of us do the real work here in the north." Jon clenched his jaw, his patience wearing thin in the face of Theon's taunts. He had endured the Ironborn's insults for far too long, and now, with his departure imminent, he felt a simmering anger rise within him. "Watch your tongue, Greyjoy," Jon warned, his voice cold and steely. "You may wear the Stark colors, but you'll never be one of us. And mark my words, I'll return one day to ensure that the North remains free of your kind." Theon's smirk faltered for a moment, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty at Jon's words. But he quickly regained his composure, sneering defiantly at Jon. "We'll see about that, Snow," Theon shot back, his voice dripping with disdain. "But mark my words, when you return, you'll find the Ironborn ruling these lands, and House Stark nothing but a distant memory." With that parting threat hanging in the air, Jon turned away from Theon, his jaw set in determination. He would not let the Ironborn's arrogance go unchallenged, nor would he forget the debt he owed to his family and his homeland. A Stark appeal. As Jon prepared for his departure to Deepwood Motte, Lord Stark made a decision that would alter the course of Jon's life forever. With a heavy heart but unwavering determination, Lord Stark penned a letter to King's Landing, requesting the legitimization of Jon Snow as Jon Grey Stark. The decision weighed heavily on Lord Stark's mind as he sealed the letter with the sigil of House Stark. He knew the implications of his request, the potential ramifications it could have on the delicate balance of power in the North. Yet, he also understood the importance of ensuring Jon's rightful place within the family and securing the future of House Greystoke. As the Raven took flight, carrying Lord Stark's plea to the capital, Jon could only wonder at the outcome of his father's bold move. He knew that the road ahead would be fraught with uncertainty, but he also felt a glimmer of hope stirring within him. For the first time in his life, Jon dared to imagine a future where he was not just a bastard but a true Stark, recognized and accepted by all. And though the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, he faced it with a newfound sense of purpose, ready to embrace whatever destiny awaited him. Announcing the change. With the letter to King's Landing sent, Lord Stark turned his attention to the next crucial step in the transition of power, informing his lords and vassals of the change in lordship at Deepwood Motte. Gathering his council in the great hall of Winterfell, Lord Stark addressed the assembled nobles, his voice steady and authoritative. "My lords and ladies," Lord Stark began, his gaze sweeping across the room, "I have called you here today to discuss a matter of great importance. As you know, my son Jon Snow is soon to depart for Deepwood Motte, where he will assume the role of lordship over our family's ancestral seat." A murmur of surprise rippled through the gathered assembly, whispers of speculation and curiosity filling the air. Lord Stark held up a hand for silence, his expression grave but resolute. "In addition to Jon's appointment," Lord Stark continued, "I have also taken steps to secure his rightful place within our family. I have sent a letter to King's Landing, requesting the legitimization of Jon Snow as Jon Grey Stark." A hushed gasp filled the hall at Lord Stark's revelation, the implications of his words sinking in. Legitimizing Jon would not only solidify his claim to Deepwood Motte but also elevate his status within House Stark and the realm. As such, Lord Stark continued, "I ask for your support and cooperation in this matter. House Greystock must be united and strong if we are to face the challenges that lie ahead. Together, we will ensure the prosperity and security of our lands for generations to come." With that, Lord Stark concluded his address, leaving the assembled lords and ladies to ponder the implications of his words. The future of House Greystock hung in the balance, and as they filed out of the great hall, each noble knew that their actions in the days to come would shape the destiny of the North. As the days dwindled down to the eve of Jon's departure for Deepwood Motte, Winterfell buzzed with activity. Jon stood in the courtyard, overseeing the final preparations for the journey ahead. The air was crisp with anticipation, mingled with a hint of sadness at the impending farewell. Jon was clad in the armor of House Stark, the dire wolf sigil emblazoned proudly upon his breastplate. Beside him stood the 50 Winter Guards, handpicked for their loyalty and skill in arms. Among them was the Castellan appointed by Lord Stark to aid Jon in his rule until he reached the age of 15. The Castellan, a seasoned veteran of House Carstark, bore the weight of his years with dignity and grace. Though he had once been the second son of his house, fate had led him down a different path, guiding him to the halls of Winterfell where he had served as a trusted advisor and mentor to generations of Stark heirs. "Are you ready, my lord?" the Castellan asked, his voice steady and reassuring. Jon nodded, a mixture of excitement and apprehension churning within him. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied, his gaze fixed on the towering gates of Winterfell. "It's time to begin the next chapter of our journey." With a final glance back at the castle that had been his home for so long, Jon mounted his horse and signaled for the procession to move out. The gates of Winterfell swung open with a heavy creak, and Jon led his retinue out into the wide world beyond. As they rode out into the fading light of day, Jon felt a surge of determination coursing through him. Though the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, he knew that he was not alone. With the support of his loyal companions and the wisdom of his Castellan, he was ready to face whatever trials awaited him in the lands of Deepwood Motte. For he was Jon Grey Stark, the heir to House Greystock, and his journey was only just beginning. With the setting sun at his back and the wind at his face, he rode forth to meet his destiny, eager to write his own chapter in the annals of history. After bidding a tearful farewell to his family and setting forth from Winterfell with his retinue, Jon Grey Stark's journey to Deepwood Motte was marked by determination and anticipation. Guided by the seasoned wisdom of Castellan Roderick, they traversed the rugged terrain of the north, facing challenges and overcoming obstacles along the way. 5 long months passed in preparation for Jon's assumption of lordship over Deepwood Motte. During this time, John immersed himself in the affairs of governance, learning the intricacies of ruling a domain from his experienced mentor. Together, they laid the groundwork for John's leadership, strategizing and planning for the challenges that lay ahead. As they finally arrived at Deepwood Motte, John felt a surge of pride and excitement well up within him. The ancestral seat of House Greystock stood before him, a symbol of his family's legacy and a testament to their resilience throughout the ages. With Castellan Roderick by his side, John wasted no time in acquainting himself with his new home. He walked the halls of Deepwood Motte, familiarizing himself with its layout and history, and met with the residents and servants who called it home. As he settled into his new role, John knew that the true test of his leadership was yet to come. The lands of Deepwood Motte were vast and diverse, with challenges and opportunities awaiting at every turn. But with Castellan Roderick's guidance and the lessons he had learned at Winterfell, John was determined to prove himself worthy of his newfound title. And so, as the sun set on his first day as Lord of Deepwood Motte, John Greystock looked out upon his domain with a sense of purpose and determination. The journey ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to face whatever trials awaited him, confident in his